All right, good evening, folks. I'm Josette Fitzgibbons. I'm the Neighborhood Business District Manager for the URA. Also on with us is Miranda Messier, our Neighborhood Business District Outreach Analyst. Miranda's actually going to be doing the bulk of the program, but I'm going to give you a little bit of introduction to the URA and our Avenues of Hope initiative. And then we'll get into the meat of what I know all of you really want to hear is about our facade program and how to do it. We should be having some other folks join us as we go. If you have questions, encourage you to drop them in the chat if you can. You can also ask us, and there will be time at the end as well for question and answer. I also have to say, as I'm talking, there is a chance that my dogs are going to start to bark. And if that happens, I will put it on mute and let Miranda pick it up. As long as her dogs.
There's a chance that my dogs will start barking at Josette's dogs barking. So
yes. So it's the hazards of working from home. So just a little introduction to the URA. Some of you, I know, I recognize a couple of names on the list already. You all know kind of what we do. We're basically the city's redevelopment or the city's economic development arm. And we want to create, as much as we can, a city of inclusive opportunity for everybody. Okay, next, Miranda. So the priorities, just quickly, of the URA, we do a lot more than working with small businesses and our neighborhood business district work. We want to create more housing that is affordable to Pittsburgh families. We want to help to grow entrepreneurship and small business development to help small businesses as much as we can. We want to promote inclusive growth, expand our neighborhood and Main Street revitalization efforts, which is the work that Miranda and I really focus on, and help to develop a workforce that is equipped to move forward as we move forward. Okay, next. So about a year ago, we started with an initiative that was started by the Peduto administration and continued by Mayor Gainey, that is called our Avenues of Hope initiative. It's basically a way to rebuild Pittsburgh's primarily Black main streets. We're looking at districts that, had a lot of disinvestment, that traditionally had not had strong business district programs. And we developed a place-based approach that looks at all levels of sustaining a healthy neighborhood, from small business development to housing, and everything in between. And so we're focusing on seven commercial corridors throughout the city. And the goal is to invest in existing small businesses and bring new businesses into the neighborhood and encourage the growth of the neighborhood. So the 7 Avenues of Hope corridors are in the north side, Perrysville Avenue. It's basically 2 nodes, which is the Perrysville and Charles area, and then the 5 Points area up near Riverview Park. We're working in all of Chartiers Avenue, actually from more than just Sheridan. It's Elliott, Sheridan, and Chartiers and Wind Gap. So it's the whole 3-mile stretch of Chartiers Avenue, Center Avenue in the Hill, Larmer Avenue in Larmer, Homewood Avenue in Homewood, Warrington Avenue in the Hilltop. We're potentially expanding the Hilltop Avenues of Hope to include a little bit of Brownsville Road as well around where it intersects with Mount Oliver, and then 2nd Avenue in Hazelwood. So this is just a representative map. You can connect to this map on our website that shows where the Avenues of Hope communities are. And you'll see Miranda just dropped the map in the chat if you want to also save it and take a look at it. You'll see 2 different colors there. One is a pink line that encompasses the actual commercial district, and that's the actual heart or focus of the kind of the commercial corridor. This is Chartiers Avenue in the west part of the city. And so we know that there are parts of Chartiers that have some residential, but there are a lot of commercial nodes around there. And then you see a green line moving out from that. That's a little bit larger than the pink line. The green line is what we're calling the Avenues of Hope investment area. And that's really what we're working within for the facade program. So if you have a business that's 3 or 4 blocks off of Chartiers Avenue, but you're still within that green section, then you are still eligible. And you can see here, we have them for each of the neighborhoods, but just using Chartiers as the example, it actually reaches down into the West End neighborhood. So we'll be, we've had some interest from a couple of businesses on Main Street in the West End. So we know that, we're flexible with this. These aren't chiseled in stone boundaries, that we do have a little bit of flexibility. Now, if you're like 2 miles away from it, it's not going to work, but know that you don't have to be directly on the commercial corridor. Next slide. So, and this is turning over to Miranda.
Great. Thanks so much, Josette. So I will now jump into our Avenues of Hope Storefront Facade program. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the program and then really take some time to go in depth in the application and talk through kind of what we're looking for in the application itself. And then we can open it up for any questions and talk about some next steps. So the facade grant program provides funds to commercial building and business owners to improve their building facades. So that's really the main priority of the program is, the front of the building, commercial buildings, storefront buildings, to improve the aesthetics of the commercial corridor. Here are our guidelines. So the grant is a $12,000 grant. We will require a 10% match from the building or business owner. So that's around $1,200. Did I say 12,000 or 1,200 first? 12,000 grant with a $1,200 match. And the funds can be used to improve the facade of the program, like I mentioned. We are allowed to put 25% of the grant towards interior improvements, and 50% of those funds can also be used for ADA improvements. Additionally, depending on the funding source, prevailing wage rates may apply. And that's just going to be taken on a case-by-case basis. And I have my contact information later on in the presentation. And if you're curious or want to ask more about that, feel free to reach out.
I'm going to jump in here, Miranda.
Mm-hmm.
Just assume it's an issue with getting funding from a government source. The best thing to do when you're looking at the budget for your facade, to give Miranda a call or an email and get information on prevailing wage, because most of the money that we have in this program is either federal or state money. And so there's a really, really, really good chance that you're going to have to pay prevailing wage. And Miranda will go into that a little bit more, but just remember that. That's one of the downfalls of using public money.
Thanks. So the eligibility requirements for the grant program, the type of businesses that are eligible are commercial establishments, service establishments, personal services, repair services, and business services. So really a wide variety of businesses are eligible. Also folks that, are, starting their business, redeveloping a space that's not currently being used is also eligible. Owner occupancy is not required. So, if you rent your space, that's also fine. You will just have to get, consent from your landlord to make those improvements. So kind of going into the application process, we are going to be considering applications on a quarterly basis, with the first deadline being February 28th. So that is, when you apply, if you've already applied, just know that you won't be hearing a decision until after that first application deadline of February 28th. We have April 30th as the next deadline, July 31st, and October 31st as the next two. So if your project's not ready right now, feel free to hold off and wait to apply at a later time. Folks who apply for the first round of applications, we're going to still have money available for the later rounds of applications is what I'm trying to say. Additionally, there's a $100 application fee for our application. So next, I really wanted to just take some time and go through kind of step by step what is required for the application, and then we can go into any questions that you might have. So the first part of the application is pretty straightforward. Your first name, your last name, your email address, best phone number, your business entity name. And, if you are one of those folks that is redeveloping a storefront that hasn't been occupied, feel free to just type in your name there. Your tax ID, if you have one, if you've started the business, if not, your social security number, and the address there of the property being improved. So we don't need your home address, but rather the property where you're trying to get the funds for. So here we have the number of employees, and that's not making any determination on our applications. We're not using that as a factor, but that's just helpful for reporting. And next we have your Avenues of Hope corridor. And like Josette mentioned, with that green circle, we're considering, projects that aren't necessarily they don't have to be on Homewood Avenue. They can be, maybe a block over. So just select the one that you're closest to and that you're considered in that green bubble around. Next we have, is your business minority or women owned? And it's pretty straightforward. We have here next whether or not you own the building in which you're applying for funds. So like I said, you do not have to own the building to receive this grant. We do just need contact information and approval from your landlord. So depending on if you click yes or no here, it'll take you to questions about your building owner and their contact information. And I would suggest, just before you submit this, letting them know that you are going to be submitting this and getting their approval for the program, for the improvements. Okay, so here's where we really want to see kind of what you're looking to do on your project. So first I have describe the current use of the building. So I just put an example here. The building is currently being used as a coffee shop. So whatever the best description you have for that would be helpful. Next question is describe the improvements that you would like to be doing to your building, including as much detail as possible. So if you don't have those details and you're still working those out, that's totally fine. But the more information, the better here. So I put a little example here. So we'll be installing new storefront windows, a new sign for our shop with gooseneck lighting above. We'll be installing a new front door and ADA accessibility improvements in our entryway. So that's pretty, straightforward. Here's what we want to do. And we will get more detailed as we move forward in the application process with each applicant. We have our dollar amount estimate, and again, that can be an estimate, just give a rough idea of what you're looking for. And here's a list of the various improvements that you'd like to make. So I checked off window repair, exterior door, lighting, ADA ramps, and signage. And so I have these are just kind of some examples here, but you can always click other and add some more. You'll see here, same thing for the interior improvements that you would like to do. Keeping in mind that, 25% of the overall grant can be used for interior improvements, which comes out to around $3,000, and 50% of the funds can be allocated towards ADA improvements, which comes to around $6,000, a little bit more with that match. So keep that in mind when you are, thinking of if you would like to include interior or ADA improvements, because we really want to see the bulk of the application being focused on the facade of the building, the exterior improvements.
Okay, I'm going to insert a note. Remember when you're applying and you're asking for, say you're asking for $12,000 or something like that, what you put in as the amount of your total project needs to be more than that. So if you put in that your total project amount that you're doing is $12,000, then we'll take 10% off of that. And your total grant would be whatever 12,000 minus 10% is, because I'm not good at math in my head. But just remember that when you're applying. So if your total project is $20,000, that's no question, because you can only get 12 from us, and then it would just be a piece of your project. But if you're, wanting to do 3 or 4 things, and the one thing costs $2,000 or $3,000, another thing costs $2,000 or $3,000, just remember that there's 2 numbers you're working with. One is your total project cost, and the other is how much you're asking from us. And if your project is not going to total $12,000, then don't ask for $12,000, because we won't be able to give you 12, but we'll be able to give you 90% of your project cost. So just keep that in mind.
All right, so after you finish all of those questions, you're going to be directed to an additional page that is asking you for additional documentation. So not all of this is, required to make a decision on the application, but the more the better, and we do need some of these documents. So if you are not the owner of your property, we do need a letter of support from your landlord/property owner saying that they consent to this project being done. We'll need to see occupancy permits and or building permits if you have one. A lot of folks aren't at the stage where they have the building permit yet, but once we move further along, that will need to be obtained if it's required for your project. We will need color photographs of the building's current state. So we'd really love to see, what exactly your building looks like now. And then we can also take photos afterwards to be able to show our impact. We need an illustration showing the proposed work. So this doesn't have to be an architectural drawing. It can be if your project's, more intense and more complex, but it can be hand drawn. And I have an example on the next slide, computer generated, or you can just take a picture of it, write what you're going to be doing take a picture of your building, write what you're going to be doing on it and scan it and send it back to me. That would be great. We'll need estimates from licensed contractors. If you have them at the time of your application, great. If not, we'll require them eventually, but that's something that we can work towards getting. Same with the W-9 form that will have to be filled out at some point in the process.
As Miranda's going to the next slide, just a note, we are not in the office yet. Hopefully April 1st, the URA will be almost fully back in the office, but we do not really keep paper files at all. So when she says forward that information, it has to be via email, scanned and emailed. You can even take a picture of it with your phone. If you have a letter from your landlord and you don't have the ability to scan it, you can take a picture with your phone and send it to us. But all of our files are digital now. So that's just something to know moving forward.
Thanks, Josette. And yeah, and there's also an app that you can use called Tiny Scanner, I believe. So if you do have a smartphone, it's a really fun way to hack not having a scanner. But also for the application fee, we do not unfortunately have an online system for paying that. So we still are asking you to send that in to the URA, which I have the address on the next slide, and I'll be going in every so often to collect those application fees. But here on the slide, you'll see that I have a really, really simple example of that illustration showing your proposed work. So here on the left, I have just that color photograph of the before, and this is just a random building. No, not even in Pittsburgh. I just selected one from a random city. So the picture on the right here is just what I was talking about. It's very, very simple. Just new sign will go here. These two big windows in the front will be replaced. We're going to replace this front door and install an ADA ramp, and then install that lighting here above the sign. So that's really, can be as simple as what we're looking for that color, that illustration showing the proposed work. So like I mentioned, the application fee is $100. You'll need to send that application fee into the URA. Please make sure that you are using this address and putting it care of to Miranda Messier, so that it comes to me and that I can make sure that I know that it's for the facade grant program. So also please just make sure that if your name's not on the check, like if it's from a business or an entity, please include a little note indicating your name and business associated with the application, so that I can keep all of the application checks organized. So here I have just a quick little graphic. It's from the New York City's storefront improvement grant program that they have. They have some really helpful tips and guides and ideas for storefront renovation projects. So I'm going to put those in the chat here, but really it's just showing all of the different aspects of a traditional storefront that could be considered for those improvements. So here's those lights that I mentioned on my example, the gooseneck lights, in fixing up the display window, any other windows, improving the lighting, getting a new awning, doing some security measures, etc. So this is just really giving you some examples and ideas to get your brains going and thinking about different things that can be done to improve the exterior of your commercial building. And I will turn it over to Josette now to kind of give a quick little overview of the URA's commercial lending options in case you are looking to do a larger project that's beyond, $12,000. The URA does have some really great options for folks to consider.
So all of these options, you can find the information on the URA website. But again, this is if you find your project is larger than $12,000. You can look at some of our lending products. We can use, you can use money from one of our loans as your match. You know, so if you have an able loan or something like that from us, then that can be part of your match for the project as well. We have several loan products. We're going to highlight a few of them here, but there are actually more on our website as well. The first is the micro enterprise loan program. It's loans up to $30,000, financing for startup and small businesses. It is really, really low interest. I think it's 2% right now. And it is the great thing about the microloan program is that our underwriting is really flexible, which means that if a business owner has had some stuff happen in your life, you know, maybe a divorce or an illness or something, and your credit score has tanked, that's not gonna, we're not gonna turn you away for that. So as long as you have a solid business plan, then the microloan program is one where we really are very flexible on other underwriting. We have a program called Accelerating Business Expansion Loan, which is a little bit larger than the microloan program. So it's it can be used for real estate purchase and pre-development stuff, as well as furniture, fixtures, equipment, working capital. And so that is loans, I think it's from 30 to 200,000, but loans in that range. For really larger loans, and I don't know that anyone here will be looking for the really largest loans. Actually, some of you might. The Pittsburgh Business Fund goes up to 500,000 for small and medium-sized business for real estate, equipment, and working capital. Next. And then we have a couple of others. We have the Minority Business Recovery and Growth Loan Fund, and this is specifically for minority and women-owned business or minority-owned businesses within the city. And we really focused it on helping businesses recover from COVID, you know, recover from the total shutdown and start growing. And this is up to $100,000. We do have a program just for our Avenues of Hope community, which is the Avenues of Hope Commercial Real Estate Program. This is long-term financing, so it's financing between $50,000 and $200,000 with 1% interest rate. The thing about this loan is that there's no payment due for 20 years. So this is a really great program for investing in our Avenues of Hope communities. And then we have a small contractor line of credit. So if any of you are working, either work as, you know, some of your work is as a contractor, or working or know smaller contractors that kind of want to get their foot in the door of doing small developments in our neighborhood, this is a loan that can help, or a line of credit that can help them get started. Sometimes the initial working capital is the issue. So this is $25,000 to $100,000, and it's a line of credit as opposed to a loan. So it's something that it's open for them. And there's also technical assistance that goes along with this as well. And our other, I forgot to mention this, our other business loan programs as well. There is technical assistance available for the business if you having trouble putting your business plan together, or financing, or anything like that. And all of this can be found on our URA.org. If you just go under the tab that says services and services for businesses. And now we're open for questions. Do you guys have questions? We're here to help.
So how many, is there a limited number of grants that you have available per quarter, and can you apply multiple quarters, or if you need more than the 12,000, you just have to look at a loan program?
Yeah, if you need, you know, there is, I mean, we do this year have a budget, but we can fund probably 30 or so grants over the course of this year, which actually, you know, we used to have a facade grant program that was available citywide, and 30 is a lot for a year. So we, you know, the funding, there's not really a issue of funding running out. The reason that we moved it to be quarterly as opposed to a rolling application was just manageability on our part, and the ability to provide more assistance, you know, one-on-one with folks that are asking about it, because we're not constantly getting applications in. The other question is, you know, if you have a property and you get a facade loan, you can't apply for another facade loan from us for that property for a few years, because you only fix up the facade once. So that's, if you need more than $12,000, you need to look at other financing, whether it's from us or other sources that you might have. Now, if you have a property, you know, if you own 4 storefronts on one street, you could theoretically apply for 4 grants for your 4 storefronts. We do it by property, by address and by property. So, you know, if you own several buildings, you could over the course of time get several grants from us.
Got it. Thank you.
Good evening, Josette and Miranda.
Hi,
So good to
Teresa.
see you. I wanted to ask, I know that in the past with my cafe, we did a facade grant years ago.
Mhm.
Have you done away with that program? Is this the new program going over to Avenues of Hope only?
Yes, so the program that LaTeresa's referring to was our storefront renovation grant, a storefront renovation program, which was a $5,000 matching grant. We also had a larger program that was in more targeted areas that was up to $30,000 called Street Face. Though the funds ran dry for those about a year and a half ago, and maybe 2 years ago. And we also got to a point of realizing that we needed to take a step back and kind of take a look at the programs. There is the ability, so what we've done in the meantime, in between our deciding we needed to take a step back, was we got this pandemic. So all of our attention was focused elsewhere. But as we were able to take a look at it again and looking at the Avenues of Hope initiative and the funding that we were able to pull together, what we decided to do is start out focusing in our Avenues of Hope corridors, and hopefully within a year or so we can expand it back to citywide. We might have some slightly different requirements for commercial corridors outside of Avenues of Hope, like we might require a bigger match or something like that. We haven't quite figured that out. But if any of you have businesses outside of the Avenues of Hope, you know, feel free to at least let Miranda know, because we are keeping a list of an interest list, which helps us, really helps us when we're going through the budget process for next year to say, we really need to expand this citywide.
Now, I can't remember, is this a reimbursement program or no?
It is. We can work on a case-by-case basis to be able to do a little bit upfront. I mean, not the whole 12,000, but somehow work with you of getting an invoice, you know, the first invoice from the contractor. And we can pay it, and then we need to show, you know, you need to send us evidence within 30 days or something that you paid it. So we have some flexibility at the beginning of your project. But
And I
it's
have
not with the whole 12,000. It has to be, it can be just a little at the beginning.
Okay.
And we're still kind of
And I
working
have
that.
one other
through that.
question.
Okay.
What is the time frame? So if you're approved for the grant, what is the time frame for that work needing to be done that the URA will be requiring? So if you say I'm approved on the 28th or March the 1st, what's the time frame that I need to complete that work?
I think, Miranda, we've put it at a year, right?
Yep, I believe it's a year. And, you know, if you feel like maybe you're not ready for that February 28th deadline, applying later on. I mean, I know that you yourself, I'm pretty sure you've already applied. But for folks who haven't, like, feel free to wait later on. That's not gonna impact our decision. We're gonna, you know, make sure to allocate funding for each round.
Yeah, so
Thank
it's a year from the time of the signing of your grant agreement, but we really want to see projects, when you apply, we want to see shovel ready. Well, not really shovel ready, you're not doing new construction, but we want to see, I guess, hammer ready projects.
Thank you.
So I have another question, please. If you have a larger project that's not exactly facade, say for example, the roof, would that qualify as an other category that was seen on the application? Or does it have to be visible from the street?
It's anything that's visible from the street, so it does not include the roof or the sides of the building. We are this time allowing some, you know, a little bit of interior work, and a little bit of ADA. So if you have to put ramps inside the storefront or something like that, but that's it. So it's things, you know, a few little things within the storefront, and then basically anything that you can see if you're standing in front of the building on the street and looking up.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Meg?
Just real quick, yeah, thanks for this presentation, and the other questions have been helpful. I was just curious, so if a property owner applies and there's a tenant, a small business in the storefront, do they need to officially sign off or have a letter? Or is it just kind of assumed that the property owner would work with their tenant and it's fine for them to apply solely?
Yeah, it's fine for the property owner to apply.
Okay. And then I was curious if there's kind of a time frame on cost estimates of when they would need to come in. I appreciate that Miranda said you don't need them for the application deadline, but is that usually like within a couple weeks of the deadline you would need that information?
I would say as soon as possible. You know, we're going to be flexible with that, like I mentioned, but like once we make that decision and in order to like sign an agreement and move forward, we'll really need to see those estimates from the contractors that folks are going to be hiring.
Okay, and then just real quick, lastly, Josette, you mentioned you're looking at Knoxville Road, or Brownsville Road in Knoxville. I was just curious if there's kind of a timeline that you have in mind for official changes or announcements about that.
It should be soon.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions, folks? Okay, you guys can. Okay, Miranda, you can close out. We're bored.
Okay. No problem. Well, thank you everybody so much for attending. Feel free to stay in touch. Email me any questions that you think of after this webinar, or if you're watching this after the fact, feel free to reach out anytime. I have my email address here on the slides, and the URA website, which is pretty straightforward, ura.org. And then also follow us on social media if you don't already follow us, because that's a great way to stay informed and up to date on what's going on at the URA, different programs and loans and different things that are available. It's always, you know, there's always new things going on. So feel free to stay in touch. And with that, our presentation is over. Thank you guys so much, and hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.